When you picture a quintessential Western film, this is probably what you would picture, right? And when you picture a quintessential Australian film, this is most likely what you would think of. Well, what would you imagine the combination of the two would be? Something like this, maybe? So how exactly did the proposition combine these two aspects to create one extremely unique Australian film? Let's get into it. Towards the end of the 20th century, there was a massive resurgence of Western films in Hollywood, with classics such as Unforgiven and Tombstone paving the way for a new type of Western.
You'd be William Munny out of Missouri. Killer of women and children.
That's right. I've killed women and children. Killed just about everything that walks or crawled at one time or another. And I'm here to kill you, Little Bill.
What sets these films apart from their predecessors is the emotional depth of their characters. In old classics such as Shane and The Searchers, there is depth in the portrayal of an imperfect cowboy. But what is different about these neo-Western films is the focus on morality. Neil Campbell describes neo-Western as refusing a static portrait of the West suffused by myth or stereotype, wanting to develop a new style for a new age. In Unforgiven, William is forced to abandon his new life and return to his old life of crime. This causes a constant mental battle between the man he once was and the man he believes he is now. The proposition is similar in this sense. Charlie is constantly forced to question himself. He struggles to decide what is the best decision for him and what is the right decision. Like William, he left a life of crime behind in order to start anew, but is soon forced back into his old world.
So what is it that you want?
I want Arthur Burns.
I no longer ride with me, brother.
What is so refreshing with this take on an old genre is how different the tone is. It's dark, it's gritty, it's unrelenting in its emotional manipulation of the audience. We, as the audience, go on this journey with Charlie and experience his inner torment with the choice he has to make. Should Charlie kill his brother, one of the last living members of his family, or does he let him live, thereby killing his younger brother in the process? We follow the same thought process as him and empathize with his struggle in playing God.
Mikey deserves better. You're right to leave. Take him with you. I need to rest.
The proposition on the surface is a straightforward neo-Western film. However, it is also an extremely Australian film, focusing on characters and landscape that are innately Australian. Firstly, let's get into what makes an Australian film.
I don't suppose you thought it would be like this.
As Elizabeth Avram describes, Australian national cinema has a resonance that attracts the Australian audience. This resonance is dependent on the story's ability to factor in elements of Australian identity. The proposition is set in the era of early settlement, which plays a massive role in Australians' identity. European Australians relate to stories of early immigrants moving to Australia to start a new life, and Indigenous people's identity revolves around the history of their ancestors, and this time of early settlement is a pivotal moment in their history. The proposition uses this resonance with the history of Australia to attract a largely Australian audience. What the proposition does to excite the audience, however, is to showcase a more realistic portrayal of iconic Australian personality types, combating, as Ross Gibson puts it, the more heroic myths of individuals versus the environment, with characters such as Ned Kelly.
My mother is rotting away in a prison cell because of the lies of a policeman named Fitzpatrick. She's an innocent woman, and so are these boys here. My Irish brethren have been unlawfully imprisoned and blacklisted from their selections. How do you expect me to behave other than to stand up against this treatment?
However, that version of the legend himself isn't the exact truth. In reality, Ned Kelly would be much closer to Charlie and Arthur, as he was ruthless but was doing what he thought was the best for him and his family. Charlie and Arthur are the realistic versions of this personality type that many Australians idolise. They are not these swashbuckling hero types that represent the determination of the Australian people. They are flawed, but they are real. So, with all this in mind, The Proposition is a Western film. It is also an Australian film. It expertly combines both realistic character portrayals and Western character tropes to create one unique Australian film.